Hello friends, welcome back to Random Hearts. We're on our way up to Yellowstone right now. We have not visited Yellowstone Park in probably 27 years, close to 27. Even though we live in Wyoming, it is difficult to get into Yellowstone and actually do some camping up there. We have friends from Arkansas that stayed up very late, almost a year ago, to get our campsites up there. And we are appreciative of that, but we are driving through Boulder, Wyoming right now and heading into Pinedale, and we'll just show you some of the scenery along the way. You'll see that the scenery changes very drastically from the I-80 corridor all the way up into Yellowstone. Quite a difference in scenery. We also have a storm front coming through, a cold front, that may impact some of our travel tonight and our setup in the campground. But let's just go along and see what happens as we tour Yellowstone. So friends, we just passed Hoback and we are headed now up to the Jackson Hole area. We are going to stop and get fuel there. Probably not the cheapest route to go for fuel, but we will need it before we head into the park. We'll also stop and get some lunch. We have sandwich fixings in the back in the refrigerator, so we'll go ahead and make a sandwich. The scenery's been beautiful so far, huh?
Yes.
And we're pretty impressed. We have some cloud cover, which is helping with travel, and we're hoping that the park is not super packed just because of the weather. So we'll just keep you coming along with us as we get into the park, and maybe we'll show you what we have for lunch. Downtown Jackson Hole, Wyoming was a bit frustrating for my husband. We have not been here, like we said, in years, and we did not know the explosion of tourism that has happened here. There were people walking in front of us, behind us, there were cars everywhere. We even had horses and buggies to deal with, but it was difficult to move our large rig through the downtown area. And yes, this is one of the 4 arches that are made of elk antlers that are on the corners of the town square in Jackson Hole. Hi, honey. What are we having for lunch?
Tuna fish sandwiches.
All right, and some grape tomatoes, and of course some chili cheese burritos. We just stopped here. We're at the National Elk Refuge right off the side of the road. Jackson Hole was a little bit crazy, huh?
Yes.
So a lot different than we remember it from a few years ago.
27 years ago.
Yeah, but we're going to eat our lunch and then we'll hit the road. Multi-pass. Actually, it was an $80 pass, and it will get us into all the national parks for the next year. A lot cheaper than the $35 per park that we were going to have to pay today, so made that decision right away. Using the southern entrance to enter Yellowstone National Park also meant that we needed to pass through Grand Teton National Park. So there are fees at both of their entrances, and we did have quite a lot of weather, including some cool temperatures as we entered Yellowstone. We also hit some road construction right away as soon as we got into the park. They are building a new bridge, and that did slow us down a tiny bit, but not too bad. Well, we've made it into Yellowstone. We are just now skirting the West Thumb and Yellowstone Lake area, and we're headed to our campsite. But I don't know how the rest of this vlog will go because we will be with company that I don't know how comfortable they are with filming. So we'll see how that goes, but we've got plenty to show you. We might not do a whole lot of on-camera vlogging during this part, but we will show you where we're going and the sights we're going to be seeing. After getting to the campsite, our husbands decided to take off and make changes to our boat reservations, and they saw these elk along the way. Good morning. It is day 2 in Yellowstone. Last night we got to our campsite, met up with our friends, and we spent the evening with them, had dinner, played a few games, and stayed indoors. It was very cold last night. In fact, we woke up this morning with snow on the ground and a temperature of 29 degrees. And it's not expected to get much better today. So our cruise that we had planned today on Yellowstone Lake has been postponed and moved to another date, and we are going to tour some of the sites of Yellowstone today. So we'll get into our vehicles and drive around, hop out, see some things, and get back into a warm vehicle. But yeah, you can probably tell I'm just now waking up. I have had a little bit of trouble since we got here with congestion, and I'm hoping that today going out into the, air, getting some fresh air will help. So I'm going to enjoy my morning cup of coffee, and then we're going to make some pancakes for our friends, and then we'll head out. Hey! We're on our way. We're heading up to, are we heading up to Old Faithful area? Yep. Yeah. Our first stopover was actually at Yellowstone Lake. We just parked along the side of the road, got out, and took a look at the lake itself. Very blustery day. You can see how heavy the waves were, and we were very appreciative that we were not out on that lake. Okay, so how is this compared to Arkansas this time of year?
It's a little chilly. It's actually freezing compared to Arkansas.
Yeah, it's snowing, and it's probably 30 degrees.
I have 4 layers on.
Yeah, yeah.
Gloves.
I'm a little used to it, so
yeah, I've gone soft.
It's snowing.
The signs couldn't be clearer, but somehow, every single year, someone strays from the boardwalks. We entered the West Thumb Geyser Basin, and the sound of the snow underneath our feet on the boardwalk was just amazing. Also, because of the air temperature, you can see we were getting quite a lot more thermal activity and a lot more steam because of the difference in temperatures between the ground and the air. You can see Yellowstone Lake off in the distance and the storm clouds that were overhead. And of course, all the beautiful trees with their snow caps. This was a vent. I cannot remember the name of it, but it was spewing a lot of gas here. And just beautiful scenery. This pool, also cannot remember the name of it. We tried to take pictures of the names of all these pools and springs, but sometimes that just gets lost. I have so many hours worth of footage to go through here, and we had several cameras taking pictures, so it's inevitable that we will lose some of the information and data. This was a gorgeous area though, and some of our best photos came from this basin. Someone was having a little fun with the snow this morning, and they made several snowmen and other snow creatures, and we got quite a chuckle out of it as we saw this snow duck right next to a real duck that was enjoying the lake. This duck was not the only wildlife we saw along our route up to Old Faithful. Here we have a baby black bear, and of course we're looking for Mama. Never did see her, so that made us quite nervous. Once again, we took a little detour on our way up to Old Faithful and ended up at the Kepler Cascades. This was a beautiful canyon with a waterfall and a bunch of rapids. Also some gorgeous rock formations and beautiful trees here. Made for a gorgeous backdrop and some very nice portraits. We are now headed up to Old Faithful Inn and to see the Old Faithful Geyser. What an amazing building, both architecturally and from the standpoint of the materials that were used to build it. Because Yellowstone is full of lodgepole pines, that is one of the main wood materials that was used in this building, along with this native stone fireplace here. This is a giant fireplace, four-sided and goes up almost 5 stories. And if you get a chance to go through with a tour guide, I highly suggest it. The ranger that we went through with was very knowledgeable and could tell us a lot of information about the build itself and a lot of information about Yellowstone. As we head out to the Old Faithful geyser, I wanted you to see some of the architecture on the outside of the building as well as that of the inside. They paid special attention to a lot of things that you wouldn't even think about, especially with window placement and the way the building was supported. And again, we got a lot of that information from our tour guide, so I would suggest going through a guided tour. And as we head out to the Old Faithful geyser here, you'll see that there are a lot of people around here today. We did not avoid the crowds. There were still a lot of people, and I had a difficult time getting in to get some footage of Old Faithful erupting, but you'll see that here in just a minute. I did decide to speed up the almost 4 minutes of eruption footage I had here to 2 times the speed. So this is a little bit faster than you would see in normal life, but you can see that this is going very high up into the sky. There is very little to give you some kind of scale here as to how high that water and the gas is going up into the air, but it is spectacular. And the first time we came to Yellowstone, we had a 1.5-year-old at the time, and I remember my son sitting on his dad's shoulders and clapping as Old Faithful erupted without any prompting at all. He thought it was a spectacular sight. And he was not wrong, because Old Faithful geyser is one of the biggest draws to Yellowstone. After watching the eruption, we decided to go to some of the facilities in this general area. And here we are at the Visitors Education Center. Lots of information here and lots of displays on how these geothermal anomalies work, how this was once a huge volcano, and how we are still walking on a potential disaster. As we are leaving the Visitors Education Center, we did see Old Faithful erupt one more time, and then we headed into the upper geyser basin. Here we saw a bunch of springs and geysers that were pretty spectacular in their own right. We had a lot of walking to do on this path. There were boardwalks, and there were areas where there was kind of like a rubberized pavement, but you'll see here in a minute, we got to see quite a lot of terrain in this area. There was everything from geysers and mud areas to wooded areas like this one here. And of course, we're walking along the river, so we got to see some spectacular views of the Firehole River. But this was a gorgeous loop. And if you get any opportunity to walk this loop, do try to do it. There are so many different types of geysers in this section, and lots of different geothermal activity. But yeah, we enjoyed this day very much, but our feet were starting to hurt pretty badly by the end of the day. So it was a good thing that we saw this last geyser at the very end of our day. We are heading into this geyser section right now, and it is called the Lion Group, and we did not know that we were in for quite a surprise. As we approach this group of geysers, you can see right above the bench there is just a tiny bit of activity in that area, and then all of a sudden it seems to get more active. And from what we found out, we were very lucky the day we were here, because it is an unpredictable geyser and there is no way to know when it will go off. And we just got lucky enough to be on the boardwalk right as it erupted. Because of the wind this day, it was very spectacular, but I thought I was in a safe position right here, and then all of a sudden the wind changed direction. Needless to say, we got wet. And you would think that this would be warm, but it was actually very cold water hitting us. And you can see off in the distance that we've got storm clouds rolling in, and it was actually snowing on top of this eruption. So what a spectacular sight. This was the Lion Geyser itself, and by far one of our favorite geysers in the park. Dare I say even better than Old Faithful itself. This was pretty exciting, as it is definitely not something that everyone gets to see. We also saw a couple more geysers after this and got to see a couple more pools. But at this point in the day, we were all starting to get very, very tired. Our legs were starting to hurt, our bodies were starting to hurt, and we did decide that we were going to call it a day. We scrapped our plans for dinner, which would have been tacos and margaritas at the campsite, and opted to eat at one of the restaurants in the Old Faithful area. And that was pretty much how we ended day 2. Good morning. It is day 3 in Yellowstone. We are getting an early start this morning. We are going to tour some of the areas we did not go into yesterday. We actually didn't get to see all the geysers up by Old Faithful and in the upper basin, so we may get some of that into our trip today. We woke up to 26 degrees this morning. No snow on the ground, but it is very cold today. We worked our butts off yesterday, and all of us were very, very tired last night. We walked well over 8 miles yesterday, and I hope that we don't have to do quite as much walking today, but that is something to be prepared for when you are coming into Yellowstone. It is a lot of strenuous walking, and it's up and it's down, and there's a lot of pathways that are uneven. So if you're coming into Yellowstone, just be prepared for a lot of that kind of strenuous walking. But we're hoping that things will warm up a little bit today. We're supposed to get to a high of 56, and hopefully we don't have quite as much wind as we did yesterday. But we'll take you along. We'll show you where we're going, and maybe get a little more clips of our friends in there. They're still a little bit camera shy, and I don't want to put them on camera if they don't want to be on camera. So we'll take you along today on day 3. So this was our first encounter with bison since we've been in the park, and unfortunately it was unavoidable. We were on our pathway, you can see the boardwalk, and they were on both sides grazing as we rounded a corner. So we watched them very closely and made sure that we were not irritating them. They did not seem at all upset by us being there. They just kept on eating. And then as we walked along the pathway, we kept a distance from each other just to kind of keep them from getting overwhelmed by our presence. But this was not the only animal we got to see along this little pathway here. We also got to see this cute little chipmunk as he was eating his breakfast. After leaving the mud volcano area, we headed up to Sulphur Cauldron and then on to the Grand Canyon area of Yellowstone. We spent quite a lot of time up here and actually walked one of the rim trails. We got to see a lot of beautiful scenery and took in some grand views. This is just a view of the canyon from the south rim, and you can see all the beautiful color here. It is hard to get a scale again on this because it is just so vast. This is from the Artist's Point view. We did walk all the way up that trailhead. You can see more of the river down at the bottom, but just a beautiful area. After we left the North Rim, we drove up to Canyon Village and had a picnic lunch with the birds, and then went on to the Village Education Center, where we got even more information about Yellowstone and how catastrophic it could be if it ever exploded. We then left for Norris Geyser Basin and got to walk quite a ways. There was no parking up there because of overflow problems, and they made us walk quite a distance before we even got to the basin itself. And once we looked out on to the geyser basin, we decided that one of us was not going to take this route. We were all getting very tired again, and this was supposed to be a quieter, more easygoing day, and it definitely was turning into a lot of walking. Right here we're at the Ledge Geyser, and this was one of the first geysers as you walked into this area. Very neat. Loved the color of the water in this area. Very turquoise, almost Tiffany type blue. Not sure if this was algae or other forms of microbial organisms or even bacteria, but just beautiful. We then headed on to the Artist's Paint Pot area and got to spend a little time there, and quite a long hike to get this next view. You can see the trail below us, and the elevation increase was intense. But what a view of this section of the park. Once we got to the top of the Artist's Paint Pot trailhead, we got to see a few mud pots. This was one of them, and I regret very much that I did not film this in slow-mo. That would have been intense. But that was probably the cherry on the top, getting to the top of this trailhead. We finally decided it was time to retire for the evening, and our lovely friends took us to Lake Yellowstone Hotel for a celebratory dinner for their retirements. What a gorgeous hotel, and just beautiful inside. Actually, this is older than Old Faithful Inn. Wonderful views, beautiful architecture, and great company. What a way to end the day. Well, we are on our fourth and final day in Yellowstone National Park. We have a very late start this morning. We have a cruise planned on Yellowstone Lake at 10:30, and we are just about ready to leave. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to pick up anything that we can this afternoon that we haven't already seen. There is a ton to see in Yellowstone, so you may not get to see everything, and that is just something you should be prepared to experience. You won't get to see everything in Yellowstone. Even if you are here for 4 days, there is just so much to do. But we will take you along with us today as we go on this boat cruise. I don't know how much of the rest of the day we'll pick up. It just depends on how much we do. But I'll see you again tomorrow morning, and we'll finish this vlog. Here we are at the Bridge Bay Boat Marina and Tours. That is our boat at the end of the dock. And we are waiting in line on the dock for our boat to start boarding. But because we were the last in line, we were also the last to get on the boat. We did not have really great seats because it is first come, first serve, even though we had reservations. But I was appreciative of having a boat that has enclosed sides, but that does create problems when filming because you get reflections from the glass. So we did not get a lot of great footage while we were on this boat tour. The boat tour lasted a little over an hour, and they took us out onto Yellowstone Lake. Our tour guide was very informative, but he was difficult to hear as he did not have a PA system, and we had several children on board. We were only able to hear intermittent facts and stories about Yellowstone Lake, but what we did hear, it does have quite the story to tell. And I would encourage you, if you are in the Yellowstone area, to take a Yellowstone Lake boat tour. It was a lot of fun, and we enjoyed the day very much. Waters were pretty calm and clear this day, much better than the first day when we were originally supposed to be on the lake. But this was just a fantastic view, and like I said, lots of information while we were on this boat tour. If you look closely in the water, you will see bubbles, and that is some of the thermal activity under Lake Yellowstone. We had a great time, and we think our friends did as well. Definitely worth the time and money. As soon as we left the Yellowstone Lake area, we got to see a huge herd of elk sitting in the grass. We stopped along the roadside, took our binoculars out, and got some pretty decent pictures here. But as exciting as these elk were, nothing could compare to Eddie the elk. He's a permanent resident of one of the gift shops. Our next stopover was in Biscuit Basin. This is just north of the Old Faithful geyser area, and we did decide not to go back into the upper basin. We missed quite a lot of geysers up there, but we wanted to see some of the other features in the park. This is just gorgeous right here. You can see the yellow stream coming into this beautiful blue pool. Amazing that this is all the same water, and the color and change that happens between one area to the other. And as this pool exits on the other side, again, it turns this very bright, almost ochre yellow color. And it's just amazing to me that nature can create so many beautiful colors in such a small area. I am so glad that we got to actually stop at this basin and walk around. We did not do a whole lot here. We just did the smaller loop, but we got to see a lot of geothermal activity that we have not seen yet in the park, and we had a little surprise when we got back to the parking lot. There were bison that were grazing along the roadway, and then they crossed into the parking lot. We have moved on to the Midway Geyser Basin, and this will be our last stop for the day because we are pretty far north and quite a distance from our campsite. It will take us a fair amount of time to get back for the evening meal, and we do have plans to have those tacos and margaritas tonight and to catch up with our friends. But you'll see we had quite a few stairs and a lot of walking paths to get up to these features, and they did not disappoint. These are another area of beautiful color and just amazing features. You'll see our biggest area that we wanted to see up here was the prismatic spring, and it did not disappoint. We are heading into that area right now, and you can kind of see it off into the right-hand corner, but just the landscape around here, the ground itself, amazing. The vapors coming off of this spring almost had that rainbow prismatic look to them. So just amazing. My husband and I both love this area very much. We finished up the loop at the Midway Geyser Basin, got to see a couple more very pretty pools, and then on our way back to our campsite, we got to see a grizzly bear. We were traveling along the road and everybody was stopped, and I did manage to capture a little bit of a photo right here, but we were not allowed to get any closer than this. The ranger would not even let us really off the grass at the road, which I understand completely. There were people that were crossing the field to get pictures and video, and that's just very dangerous. This was such an amazing trip. We got to see so many different things, and we can't thank our friends enough. We're ready to pack up and leave Yellowstone. Today was our final day here, and we will not be doing anything in the park because we have a long drive ahead of us to get home. So we're going to visit with our friends this morning, have some coffee, pack up our camper, and then hit the road. So we hope you've enjoyed this vlog with us as we went through Yellowstone towards some of the sites. It's just a beautiful park, and there's a lot to do, a lot to see, and it is kind of the most unique features that you'll ever see in a single area. There's a lot of different terrain. So we hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give that a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please consider subscribing. If you have any questions or comments about our trip here in Yellowstone, leave those in the comments section down below. And we hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.